Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 282, written by Admiral Action 859. It's a birthday, but elevators are included. You know what that means. Glitch time. It was my 18th birthday, and me and about 15 plus friends of mine had all just come back to my apartment building from a birthday dinner they had for me at TGI Fridays. The apartment building I grew up in is a tall building with only 2 elevators and 2 staircases. I lived on the 11th floor. Sometimes, me and my friends or family of my age would race elevators for fun as kids if we happened to have both elevators arrive at our floor at the same time. This was the case that night. Both elevators got to the lobby at the same time, and me and my friends packed into both elevators and hit the door close buttons at the same time. I heard the usual tone of the doors closing on both elevators, and they both closed within a split second of each other. There were only about 7 or 8 of us packed into each elevator, but I was the only one in my elevator that lived in the building and knew the ins and outs of racing elevators for fun. I knew that both elevators were equal in speed and were fairly quick. It took maybe 10 seconds to get from the ground floor to my floor, the 11th floor. There was not a chance in hell that anyone could scale the 11 flights of stairs quicker than that. I also knew that when both elevators were traveling in the same direction, me and my friends would be able to yell at each other through the elevator shaft and talk to each other in transit, as long as the elevators left at the same time and went in the same direction, which they did. Me and my rowdy teenage friends were all laughing and shouting to each other from elevator to elevator, but about halfway up, the other elevator sounded more drowned out, like speaking into a fan, and then we stopped hearing them altogether. The way my old apartment building was designed, the elevators are in the very center of each floor, and each floor is just a long, single rectangular hallway. My apartment was at the far corner of the building, as far as can be away from the staircases and elevators. When my elevator opened with my friends in it, I was ready to make a mad dash towards my apartment door, hopefully just beating out the other elevator door as it should have been opening, with just enough time for me and my friends in my elevator to get a head start and win the race to my apartment. Instead, we all flew out of our elevator to see no one else coming out of the other elevator. We didn't hear it open. We didn't hear several loud teenagers jump out like I had expected. It was as if the other elevator wasn't even used at the same time we used ours, and our friends were nowhere to be found. I knew the timing of these elevators perfectly. I had grown up in this building since I was a toddler, and had taken these ups and downs and raced friends and neighbors with them my whole life. I found it really odd that the elevators didn't open up at the same time. I also thought that maybe the other one just stopped on another floor between the lobby and the 11th floor, which of course was a common thing to have happened, and would have been good news since that would have meant we definitely won the elevator race. My elevator went as fast as it possibly could have gone, going straight from the lobby to the 11th floor. We all made our way down the hallway and into my apartment, and found that my family and neighbors, very sweet of them, had decorated the apartment with pictures of my friends and I, and surprised me with a cake. The strangest part is that this whole surprise ensemble included all of my friends who were in the other elevator that went missing in action. It was winter, and they all already had their jackets off and had thrown them onto my bed in my bedroom, and all looked as if they had already been hanging out inside the apartment for at least a few minutes. It made absolutely no sense. Both elevators left the lobby within the same second, and should have taken the exact same 10 seconds or so to reach my floor. But somehow, they had clearly got to my apartment minutes ago. I asked my friends in the other elevator how they got up there so fast, and I just got a confused reaction from everyone, including my friends that were in my elevator too. I was the only one who was left scratching my head as to how everyone inside the other elevator seemed to teleport straight into my apartment somehow. Super freaking weird. I just shrugged off the experience as best as I could at the moment, although it still has me wondering to this day how that happened. I'm a longtime reader of Glitch in the Matrix, and this memory always comes to mind when I start reading the latest posts. If you're enjoying this video, consider giving it a like. Now on to the next story. Case file number 283, written by Hell on Heels 33. A random storm on a pasture, and nothing makes sense. Fully aware I may sound like a wackadoodle, but we're gonna roll with it. I live on a small farm and have 2 horses and a mini horse. My mini horse is an arse and occasionally would escape. So a year ago, I had put an extra line in the pasture and that's kept him in, even when the fence isn't turned on. Electric fence. I haven't had an issue since. Cue this morning. I let the dog out and did a horse check. The horses are in the pasture currently, furthest away from the house, and I couldn't see my tiny horse. I ran back inside and grabbed my boots. The grass is tallish, 5 inches maybe, and even when I was almost at the pasture, I couldn't see him. I blinked, and he popped up, seemingly out of nowhere. Weird, but whatever. He could have been sleeping laid out on his side, which he will do in the morning. Walked back to the house and plugged in the electric fence just in case. Took a shower, looked outside, and he's gone again. Now he's on the road. He's never left the immediate property. I scrambled to put my clothes on and go grab him and drag him back in. No idea how he got out, no pulls or breaks in the fence. I knew it might rain today, so I moved some plants. It barely drizzled. About an hour later, winds came up hard all of a sudden. Winds are straight up whipping. Hearing the unmistakable sounds of a tornado, I grab the dog and bolt to the closet. Lasts for maybe 2 minutes. The house is vibrating for the first time ever. So I thought I may just be tired and crazy, but it flipped my 15-foot pool. That pool hasn't moved through hurricanes or tropical storms, but this time it straight up flipped and did a 180 upside down. I have friends who live 1 mile to the east and half a mile to the west. None of them heard or saw a thing, but both report intense storms during the same time. Seems odd that somehow my little few houses would be missed. Just a weird day, and I'm a bit shaken. Case file number 284, written by naniwise. With audio comes control over time. So, a few years ago, I was really into these weird internet things called subliminal audios. Basically, these things could supposedly give you anything from a pretty face to telekinesis, and I was really depressed at the time, so I fell really hard for these things. Don't judge me. Anywho, so I was listening to this one that was supposed to give you chronokinesis, which is control over time. At some point during the year, my family was going on a car trip to somewhere in Wyoming, and it began to storm really hard on the way back. There was thunder, lightning, and the rain was hitting the windows super loudly. In addition, my whole family was talking in the car. I remember this part vividly, but for just like 2 seconds, it was like everything stopped. The rain, the thunder, the talking, everything. There was no bridge, no building, no shelter, nothing. It was just like everything stopped. And then, just as suddenly, it all started back up again. This moment was so distinct to me because I had thought this was a subliminal audio I was listening to, giving me control over time. But as the years went by, I realized this moment is a lot harder to explain. Anywho, that's my story. Case file number 285, written by NoMoreCakeForYou, a neighborhood frozen in time. Sometimes I'll be in the car or taking a walk when I see people just completely frozen. Nothing else around them freezes, just them. Sometimes they're walking their dogs. Sometimes they water their garden, but they're frozen. It happens maybe twice a month. Like a few weeks ago, I was in the car and I looked over and saw this dude just standing there with his dog. Neither he nor the dog moved. He stood there for a good 30 plus minutes because he was still there when I came back from the fast food run. And a few weeks before that, I saw 4 people having a conversation where they were facing each other and one person's mouth was open like they were speaking, but no sound was coming out and they were all eerily still. Case file number 286, written by OK Thank You, on the fringe of entertainment. A few months ago, I introduced my roommate to the show Fringe. I'd purchased the complete DVD box set several years prior because it's one of my favorite series. We were watching it some way through the first season when the disc tray on the DVD player stopped working, and we ended up just leaving it in. A few weeks ago, I was moving out. As I was going around the house to collect my things, I made a point to pry the tray open to get that disc from the player. When I got it open, it wasn't a Fringe disc at all. It was an SNL Best Of type disc that I have a vague memory of watching with my roommate, but was nearly certain that it wasn't the last disc we played. Regardless, I spot some loose Fringe discs on the display shelf and put them in a box. Now I'm at my new place, unpacking. I have the box set out and I figured I'd put those loose discs back in their place. Only problem is that now I have 2 discs that are of the same season. Season 1, Disc 7. Those 2 loose discs are the same. All other discs are accounted for, 5 seasons. I tried to rationalize. I lent out that season to a couple of family members years ago who had never heard of the show, and it'd be very unlikely that they'd have an extra copy of this specific disc, the one I was sure had gotten stuck in the DVD player. I've watched this box set several times over the years, and I've never had an extra disc. I definitely had a what the hell moment, wondering if this is some divine intervention. If this is a sign, which disc do I watch?